This is Carl from Kansas with your three things I'm watching for Friday, July the 11th, WASD Day. I want to start out with the southern border. We closed that again. Secretary of Ag Brooke Rollins stating basically late Wednesday we shut it down yesterday. The markets reacted. Uh, Case of New World Order screwworm was surfaced 370 miles from the U.S. border, so we shut that back down. Mexican officials saying, look, this is maybe a tad bit of an overreaction. It was one case, and it was, it proves that their testing procedures and policies are working. So there's a little bit of tensions building there over this border being closed, but it was enough that we saw feeders spike higher yesterday, and this on again, off again border opening and closing really causing some concerns in the livestock market down there. Feeders hesitant to even consider buying cattle, to come across the border. It is just a kind of a mess. We need to get that straightened out pretty soon. But was enough to push both the fat and feeder cattle contracts yesterday up to new all-time highs before we did correct. Put in key reversals on them yesterday. So that was a little interesting going in the close. We'll see what happens today. Another thing we had yesterday, and this affects the livestock market too. Sorry, folks, not a lot of grain news this morning. Brazil tariffs at 50%. This is going to impact U.S. beef imports. And that's the concern is that's where a lot of our beef comes from that we grind for hamburger. Comes out of Brazil. We import about 7 billion pounds of beef a year, produce about 28, 29 billion. And like I said, quite a bit of that comes out of South America and it's for grinding. Here's the concern on the tariffs on Brazil on a whole that went through the market. These tariffs were not trade related. They were put on because President Trump does not agree with what the president of Brazil is saying. So we're putting on tariffs now as a political weapon. That changes the whole game, and that changes why you put tariffs on. And tariffs, that's really kind of going a little bit too far, in my opinion, because the only person this is going to hurt is the U.S. consumer at a time when ground beef demand is really starting to spike up with some economic uncertainty. So these tariffs are starting to get a little bit more attention when we start using them as political tools instead of trade tools. The third and final thing, it's WASD Day today. We're going to get the update. No major changes expected. Everybody asking me where I'm looking. I'm going right to the corn complex. U.S. corn demand right now is running about 2 million metric tons ahead of USDA projections for the year, and we continue to sell it, and we got a lot of weeks left. Corn carryout expected to drop about 120, 130 million bushels from what we saw in June, and that's just from basically from the June 30th stocks and acreage numbers being incorporated. I think we could see it drop a little more than that, but USDA might, with all the tariff concerns, hold back on adjusting their corn demand. But trade's starting to look at it and say, no matter what, we need to bump our demand up a little bit here. Those are the three things I'm watching today.